Welcome to Wow with JR, a podcast designed to help motivate others to grow by integrating practical skills, leadership principles, and teaching elements of the wilderness into our everyday lives. Now, for your host, Junior Humphrey.
Hey everybody, welcome back to today's podcast. Thankful to have you here with us today, and I am thankful that you support and follow us. If you don't already, now is your chance. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Follow us on social media. All you need is in the link below. But diving on into today, we have the question, how do we get others involved? And that is a question I've been asked several times, even here recently. How do we get people involved in what we're doing? And just through my research and my experience, I've come up with four things after looking back, just summarizing it all down into four components. But before we dive into those, I want to set us up with a story, okay? So let's take this little mental trip into the wilderness. So we're out, and just imagine a group of kids, 15 to 20 kids, and they are all on this trip. So we are going through this maze. This is a real trip. This happened. So we're going through this rock maze per se. It's more or less a cave with no ceiling, but you're about 90-foot walls, 95 feet walls, and you are down in this little crevice in this canyon, just going through this. And as you're navigating these things, there's different challenges, different things that are fun, different obstacles. It's incredible. But we draw our focus in from the adventure that we're on and in more into who we're on the adventure with. So I remember this particular trip. There was this kid, and this kid was the first person to want to ask a question, the first person to want to answer a question, the first person to run off and have to be pulled back. Very excited, but very overwhelming, very all over the place. You kind of get the point. So this was one of those kids that were like, oh man, even as a kid, you're like, I don't want to go on the trip with them. They're going to be extra. Or as a leader or a counselor, you're like, oh my goodness, how in the world are we going to keep them contained and not run off a cliff or down in a hole that we can't get them back? So setting us up with that story, because this is going to play into our four components of what we're talking about today. So we asked the question, how do we get others involved? And there's key factors that I've found in my experience. The first is the environment we set. Second is we have to rally people. Third is our investment in those people. And fourth is our takeaway. So those are the four parts we're going to hit today. And we're just going to spend a brief time on them as far as the topic and just kind of see how they integrate in with what we're doing here, okay? So as we talked about last podcast and a few podcasts back, we talked about recognizing leaders and great leadership and setting pathways and all that. So if you haven't, go ahead and go back and watch those. It'll have a good impact on today's podcast. But I want to dissect that creating pathways a little bit. This kind of falls under that category of creating pathways, but that was in another podcast, so we're not going to focus on that. Let's start with environment. So think about our environment out there. So you have a couple components of your environment. It's the actual environment you are in or you're going to be in, and then it's the environment or the atmosphere that you create. Okay. First component, we are out there in a dangerous environment. We're out there in a fun environment. To most on the trip, except for the guides, it was an undiscovered, untreaded territory of environment. They had never been there. They didn't know what to expect. And then going into it, they had this preconceived vision or thought of what it would look like and the things they would do while they were there. But as they get out, quickly realize there's a lot of things different. So with that, there is a danger element too, because you don't know what to expect. Okay. So that's the environment that we're in. Now, the environment that we create, we try to create on these trips environments that are fun and family oriented, but sometimes it ends up being hey, we got to shift to a serious to get us through here and get us done. So it just depends on what you're going through, but for the most part, 99.9% of the time, this can be achieved. So we want to create that environment. So let's take this boy for instance. Well, really, this group, we're creating this environment before we even start the adventure of collectedness, unity, acceptance, patience, helping others, you name it, courtesy. We're creating this environment that they are going to carry with them throughout this trip. Okay. And this is how you get others involved. You go ahead and you cast that environmental vision, per se, for lack of better words. You cast that environmental vision of what you want this environment to look like. And now you have to think about, how can I create an attractive environment? So when you're rallying people, we're talking about this trip here, but let's come back outside of the trip, outside of this little maze, and think about the broad scale. If you're a business leader, if you are a leader in any shape, form, or fashion, or if you're trying to get people to volunteer, to be a part of any team, you have to create an attractive environment. But here's the cool thing that I think is kind of the secret sauce to this: it has to be a real environment. It can't be a light and smoke show environment that it looks totally different next time. Because once you create this environment and this culture or this atmosphere, just using some other words to define it, people are going to buy in or they're not. So if you get them to buy in solely on the environment, that's a huge step, because now all the other components make it easier to buy in. So still moving on with the environment, create a real environment. And you have to count in and factor all people from all different backgrounds, all different developmental stages in life. You have to find a way to encompass all in one. And you're not catering to all in one, but you're going to encompass, try to make it as universal and as broad and involving as you can. And here is a key factor to that: it can't be off of personal preference. What I mean by that is, you can't be the sole vision caster and vision carrier. And I know that's contradictory to some leaders, and I'll probably get some flack on this, but every leader should be casting vision and having others help support the vision. So this is part of that. When you create this environment, you can't say, well, I think they will like this. I know they're going to like this. This will blah, blah, blah. It has to be, like we say in the EMS world, evidence based. And I wouldn't go with Google the top 5 businesses or top 5 churches. I wouldn't do that. It's a different culture, a different level. Think of what's around you, the community you're serving, the people you're going to be with or you want involved, and then create that environment that's inviting to them. Okay? Again, not excluding others. You want to have an emphasis on that because you know that's the target area, but you still want to be open to those that want to explore and come be a part. Okay? So with that, that trip we were guiding, jumping back into the little maze here, that trip we were guiding, it was a church group, and we create the same environment for that church group that we would a local fire department or law enforcement. Now the different age levels and different things, we might have to shift our jokes a little bit, and just to things that are more relevant to an adult than it is a teenage kid, but that's all part of creating that environment. And when you are creating this, think about the core group that you're reaching, or that your core target area. Again, don't limit yourself. Just consider them on the front end, and then get them to help. The few can help reach the many. So if you start getting the people involved with the environment that you set, if you start, it's attractive to them, their buy-in alone is going to cause others to buy in. Why? Because they're going to start talking. They're going to start saying, hey, check out this environment. It's safe, it's fun, it's exciting, it's new, it's different every time. And the list goes on. And that's where we jump to our next component, is the rally part. So it's almost rallying people can almost be a kind of automated thing that you as the leader, you as the one trying to get people involved, can almost come hands off if you create a great environment. Okay. So when you create an environment that, and you have these people that support you and you want to rally people, You got to figure out ways to be strategic. Because there's always a business side to it. There's always a fun element to it. There's always a serious element to it. I mean, that's the world we live in today. Most things have a business side, a excitement element, a fun element, and then a serious element. So keep that in mind when you're doing this, and you again got to make it real. When you rally, you got to rally for something real. You don't want to hype up something that's not really a lot of anything, and then people are left high and dry. So after the first run, or the first volunteer experience, or the first whatever you do, now you've actually hurt yourself more because you've caused that rally, you've caused your environment to crumble because you sold something that was fake. Okay, so that kind of, to sum that up, deliver. If you're offering this environment and you're rallying these people up around it, deliver on your product. Whether that product is a church service or a business product or a class you're teaching or something you're creating, it doesn't matter. You guys get the point. Deliver on what you're selling, for lack of better words. And now, so we jump back into the maze, this rock maze with these kids, and we're delivering. So we are going these really tight spaces, crawling through these obstacles. There's some fun components, parts where you cut your headlights out and or headlamps off, and you can see like glowing insects on the walls and just all kind of incredible stuff. The fun element is definitely there, but one thing that wasn't being sold well was the unity element, and and that wasn't anything due to us. That was because we created this environment, okay, and we rallied people around it, and we were delivering. But we found out there was a hole within the ship. So within the group there was already a discontent that was causing a sour environment. So it's that rotten apple in the basket was kind of putting worms and everything else. And should have used a different word because we're referring to a kid, and this kid is not a rotten apple. I'm not demeaning this kid. I'm saying the kid's attitude and the way he was acting out was putting a disdain in the rest of the group. So, which brings us to this: how do you reshift that environment? How do you take something that started out good, that's slowly going downhill, and turn it without flipping it over or missing the turn? That is very hard to do. It's very strategic, and it takes a lot of experience in doing these things. Um, as you've heard me say in the past, distraction is a great tool, and sometimes distraction looks like involvement, and then it becomes thorough, or how do I say this? Not thorough, um, genuine involvement. So we got everybody there, and we always pray before we go on the adventures. We get everybody equipped with harnesses. We get everybody in, and we give them some rules. Hey, some house cleaner rules. Don't do this, do that. Pick up your trash if you have this, that. Be respectful of other people because we're not the only ones in here doing tours and hanging out. So think about all those things before you go in. All right, so we go in. Now we're delivering on our elements of fun, and we're having a good time, but there's just this thing, this undercurrent that's just continuing to grow, and we notice it. And it's this one kid that means well and is just who he is, and that is totally okay. But for the rest of the group, it was about to create an issue, so we had to think fast. Which brings us to our next component: investment. I know you're like, what in the world has investment got to do with anything? So remember our environment that we're setting and the rally part, because those are going to jump back into this in a moment. But investment. So the ultimate goal as a leader in general is to pour out, pour out, pour out. So you're totally gaining so you can pour out. That is a thing that we've got to remember. And then another key factor there is to recognize potential. That is huge. And all this encompasses getting people involved. So recognizing that potential, Let's come out of the maze again. Recognizing potential in your workplace. Who do I have on my team that I know can deliver? Who do I have on my team that might not be where they need to be right now, but I can see with a little bit of help and investment from me that they can go places or they can help us go places. Remember, you always want to have their thoughts in mind and set them up for success too. It's not a selfish gain as a leader. You want to invest and create and build and add value to other people. Okay. So while we're thinking on this, recognizing potential, it might be that person that has poured out and poured out and poured out and that really wants something, but they may not be 100% there. Give them a chance. That break may be all they need to just fly and soar and accomplish it. Okay, I've seen it happen. I've seen it in people I've mentored. I have seen it in interns. I've seen it happen all over the place. Okay. I have seen a ton of different avenues where people just got a little break, someone to believe in them, someone to give them a little boost to help them out. Boom. They turned out to be incredible and great. And now they're wonderful leaders. I've seen it firsthand. So this really does work. And then leading well, it encompasses all of that. So when we lead well, we recognize those potentials. We figure out who is better in what areas, and we found ways to navigate that to where we're still building them up, not demeaning them. You don't ever want to go up to someone and say, "Hey, you royally screwed up here, but you'll do great here." It would be better delivered and probably better accepted of, hey, there's this opportunity over here. Let's test you out here to see how it works, how you feel about it. If that works, great. And then we'll talk about a transition for you. How does that sound? And then it puts the ball in their court for one. It makes them step up to the plate. But for two, it helps you as a leader not damage or ruin a relationship, which is huge as well. Okay. Now, after you're doing all this, you want to create that opportunity for them. So we talked about that, moving them into something. So you create that opportunity. All right, follow me here. We're jumping back in the maze, in this rock maze. We have this kid. So now we've got everybody involved, and we know where we're going, what we're going to do. Get the first couple obstacles, and it's just we can tell it's tanking the environment, the atmosphere, the demeanor of the group, the trip itself. So hey, we want to recognize potential. We want to create an opportunity. This kid always wanted to be the first to do everything. So we rallied the rest of the group. We got everybody together and we asked, there's this big circle, hey, who wants to step up and be a leader here? And knowing just how timid the rest of the people were, no one raised their hand. And this one kid raised his hand. Say, all right, we're going to deem so and so as the leader. And we're going to give him a general direction, but he's going to lead what we do next and where we go. This was an incredible idea. The reason being is because no one else wanted to step up. So this kid that everyone was pushing to the side was the only one that said, hey, I'm confident. I want to give it a try. Now, it may have been a sense of blind confidence and not knowing what he's getting into, but he spoke up. Okay. So we created that opportunity. We rallied everyone else around saying, hey, look, this is awesome. We're going to follow his lead, follow this. Now, we also, as we set this kid up, we're setting him up for success. We're setting the group up for success. So we now tell the group, hey, we've recognized the leader. Here's what we want to do. Break up into two groups. We want to take the leader over here, give some leadership rules. We want to take the group 10 feet over here and give some housekeeping group rules, and then go from there. So with the group, we spoke to the group of just hyping each other up. We had someone rallying, hey, look, we're doing this because we recognize that he's excited. So let's all stand behind him. Let's drive that. But it'll be easier if you guys support and engage and be a part of that. It'll make your trip a whole lot easier. Okay. So we rallied those people up, got them excited for what the kid was going to do. All right. The separated kid that we were deeming the leader of the rest of the trip, we had some ground rules we had to set for him as well. And it was just simple stuff like, hey, slow down a little bit. Think about what you're doing because you have 20 lives at stake in your hand. If you make a wrong move on here or out here, you could hurt someone. Okay. think clearly on what you're doing. Make sure you're kind of assessing before you get there so you don't miss anything. Now, this kid's a teenager. About 25% of it's sticking, the rest is going out. But we're saying the high value stuff that we know is going to really empower, like give that badge of, hey, look at me kind of thing. Because sometimes that's what people need. So we recognize his potential, that he's a go-getter, he's out there, he's going to do it, and he stepped up to the plate. Okay? So this kid, we let him lead and we kind of nudged him, hey, that's a dead end down there, or that's a little too advanced for this group. We don't have the right equipment. But for the most part, that kid just took off and went with it. And it was really cool. We had a guide up front with him just in case he had questions. And then we had other guides in the back mingling with the rest of the group. And if it was one of those things where he's like, all right, everybody to your right, everybody went to the right. All right, everybody, we're about to climb this. Who's up for climbing this? He done incredible at rallying, which is cool. And as the group got into it, and especially the leaders on the trip and the guides just supporting this kid like crazy. Ooh, I'll go, and I bet I can climb faster than so and so. Now the rest of the leaders are rallying the group continuously, and they're giving them challenges and stuff, and it's working. So now we jump back out of the little maze here, back into the real world. We think about this. We see it a lot in churches. We see it a lot in businesses, especially smaller businesses trying to get big, smaller churches trying to get big, startup volunteer opportunities, or monthly things. It is so hard to get people involved, so hard to get people bought in, because you've got to prove to them that what you're doing has more value than what they're doing. And that's hard. And while that is a great strategy, it's a hard and dangerous area to tread, because we don't know the home. We don't know the personal life. So to say, hey, this has more value, more impact than what you're currently doing, it's not healthy. So what we want to say is, hey, we know that you have incredible impact and you're making a difference where you are, but we could really use your help because we recognize your skills, your gifts, your talents. We'd love to have you a part. I could sit and tell you different ways to help communicate to people, and maybe I will go into that deeper in a different podcast. Just the communication element of rallying people. If you'd like a part two, just comment below and let me know, and we could dive into that a little more, or message us somehow. Just get it to us. But here we are, got this environment, so we created it. We rallied some people, so we heard about that in the other story, and then investing. So when we're investing in these people, it is crucial that we give something with a return of investment. Okay, and that doesn't necessarily mean us as an investor. And that sounds contradictory too, but as a leadership investor, when you invest something in someone that gives them the return of investment, it's a beautiful thing. And that's true, genuine leadership pour out, because you're asking nor accepting nothing in return, but you're totally setting someone else up for 100% true, genuine success. So that's what we did to this kid. We didn't expect this kid to give us a report at the end. We didn't expect this kid to do anything. We didn't expect him to do well. We expected him to have a takeaway. And that's kind of going into our next part here. We're talking about the takeaway. Okay, so you have your environment, you rally your people, you invest in them, and then give them a takeaway. What do they leave with? And in the business world, it could be a daily takeaway. It could be a quarterly takeaway. It could be, hey, you're leaving this job, going into a different one. We champion you, but what is your takeaway from here that's going to help you there? A church service, what are you getting from it? What's been delivered there? Mentoring. This is a huge one in my life. I love mentorship, and I currently mentor a good deal of people. And when you think of mentorship, I think of mentorship as far as takeaways as when you invite people over and you have little candy dishes out, they're just grabbing it as much as they want to. And they're not leaving a tip. They're not handing you money or anything like that. That is leadership pour out right there. So when you mentor people, you want them to just take all the knowledge you have, and you want them to turn around and give it, give it, give it. That's beautiful. It is so cool. So think about the takeaway. Um, Mentorship has great reward, and I may do a podcast on just solely on mentorship. That will be another great one, but we'll dive into that later. So let's run over back into this maze here. So we're in the maze. We have this kid, and I'm purposely not naming names or naming groups because that's irrelevant. The takeaway here is learning how to do these steps. So we have this kid, and there's we're in this maze, and they've done a ton of things. There's parts in here where we have taken him up a little ahead of the group, and we've shown him how to crawl through a certain area or how to navigate this while we're showing the rest of the majority a different scenic site or a different game or something like that. Okay. So now we are empowering this kid, and we're giving him all these skills to show. So the group comes up and gets to him. We're like, all right, so and so is going to lead you on how to do this, and we know we're confident because he showed us and we've showed him that he's capable of doing it. So if you listen to everything he's saying, he's going to get you through it, and you're going to do well. Okay, so just takes the show and starts showing them how to do these different things in different areas, and it's really cool because he was also um, a different person. He had calmed down. He had quit running off. He wanted more of what we had to offer at that point, more less and less of what he could personally just get and explore and all that. If that makes sense. So he was in a different zone, a different person. He had a purpose. He had a purpose. At first, he didn't fit in well with the group. That was obvious. At first, he didn't have a lot of rapport with the group. That was obvious. But um, they got to the point. It's so beautiful. Sometimes it makes me want to cry. The group was rallying the kid. The group was high fiving him and congratulating him. Whether it was genuine or not, it was good for the kid. Now, some of them I know were 100% genuine because they're like, man, that is awesome. He's a different person. And we were talking with him. We know. Um, so going through and at the end, we sometimes ask, hey, do you have a takeaway? And it was beautiful hearing all the stuff. Of course, he was the first one to speak, so we're like, hey, all right, gift of going first. Shoot, what do you got? And just hearing some of the things that he said was life changing for us. It was beautiful, but it motivated his group. There was things that just popped up in the group. It was like, hey, learn to be considerate. Hey, I learned to be patient. Hey, I learned to not judge a book by its cover. And hey, I learned to listen to someone who I normally wouldn't listen to. And some people are saying I learned to trust. There's a lot of cool things. And again, whether these were genuine or not sure. I'm praying they were. I do believe most of them were. But our investment, our deep investment that day was into that one kid. And the next time that group came back, that kid was on point and asked, hey, would you mind, since I've been here, we have a few new people in our group. Can I step up and help lead again? And that's exactly what he did. Totally different person when he came back. A year later, as a matter of fact. Um, totally different person when they came back. Totally different demeanor. Definitely, I know a lot happens over a year, but there was definitely some maturity there. And I want to just about bet that he has been successful since then. It's been a little bit since I've seen him personally in life in general, just by knowing, hey, a leader needs to be collective and calm and those kind of things. So that was his takeaway. And we jump back over. I know we talked a little bit about it a moment ago, but in the secular world, in the work world, in the church world, you name it, there has to be a takeaway when you get people involved. Like volunteering, yes, they're coming to give their time to pour out to other people. But unfortunately, there's this underline of, well, what do I get out of it? Now, there's those people out there in the world that have not got an ounce of that in them. And I love that. But there are some people that say, "Hey, well, I'm canceling this and that and this and that and this and that. Do I get a T-shirt? Do I get this or that?" Sometimes that's what it takes. But summing all this back up and going back to our question, how do I get others involved? Just be real. Be real with the environment you're creating. Be real when you deliver. Be consistent. There's a few things I'm going to say here that wasn't in earlier, but be consistent. Be consistent in what you're doing. Your vision can't change every 2 months or every 3 or 6 months. What you're doing can't change that often. What you're delivering can't change that often. It's hard for people to see and believe something that isn't constant and consistent. You think of people following Jesus. If he was had ups and downs and did something different every week, the way he operated, like, people wouldn't follow him. If there's inconsistency in the buy-in of others, if you're seeing huge fluctuation of people, then a huge fluctuation of people go out and then back in and back out, there might be something to kind of look at there. Consistency when you're pouring into people is huge too. If you start mentoring, you're mentoring really until they release you. Um, Now, it is the mentee's job to seek and search out the mentor. The mentor, yes, does courtesy checks and checkups and evaluations, but the mentee seeks out the mentor. It is like going and getting food. Food don't just come to you. You have to take steps to get that food. Okay. Same thing when you're mentoring people. They need to take steps to come to you, but it needs to be a consistent pour out. They have to have a takeaway. So, how do you get people invested? How do you get people involved? Just create a real environment, rally people around it, rally around something genuine and something that has a purpose, something they can believe in and stand for. Okay. Invest in them. Maybe they won't have the tools or be equipped to do what they want to help, and or what you're requesting of them. Hey, I want to be involved, but I do not know how to do CPR, but I can put on a band-aid. Or, hey, I want to be involved, but I can't sew. Could you show me? Sure. Teach them how to sew. Teach them how to do CPR if they want to do band-aids and CPR. There's ways to invest. And then when you invest in these people, they should have a takeaway, a genuine takeaway, whether it's mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, there has to be a takeaway. And sometimes that feeds that hunger of what's in it for me. Unfortunately, us as people, we have that kind of drive, but creating genuine leaders this way and getting people to actually get involved, they'll get involved and they'll be blinded to everything else. They won't care where the income's coming from. They won't care where the source is. They won't care what's in it for them. All they care about is adding value to other people, investing in other people, giving someone else the same opportunity they were given. So, you're setting up for your next fundraiser or food drive. Get a team to help you. It's hard to rally by yourself. It really is. Think about every huge movement that's ever happened, and think about every huge, uh, well, anything that has ever taken place. There has been more than one person cheering, championing this thing on, talking about it, verbalizing it, and but these people are 100% bought in. They're not just now. You can pay people to rally for you. You can pay people to paint this picture, but you better deliver on what you pay for and be able to sustain it. If not, if it's just a one-time gig, I'll let that be in your spirit, but I'd rather have it be genuine than big. You know what I mean? Because it's all about the takeaway and the impact you make. Okay, remember we talked the other day about everything we do makes a ripple, and you can ripple with clean water or muddy water. Just depends. It's up to you. But if you really want to get people involved, try these 4 things. They're not a magic sauce, but I have seen them work with experience. And as you can tell in that story, that is a true story. I walked and lived with that story. So that is an evidence based scenario. And that's how these podcasts are. These podcasts aren't just thrown out there. They are evidence-based. Everything we talk about in these podcasts are evidence-based, either through our experiences or other staff's experiences. So we encourage you to be a part and rally other people. If you believe in this podcast, rally other people around it. And it's really just to us, add value and to pour into other people. If you don't already, follow us on our social media. There's a link in the description below. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, share it, pass it along. If you would like for us to come speak, if you'd like for any counseling, mentorship, or anything like that from us, message us, let us know. We'd be happy to start that and kind of sit down with you and see what your needs are and what best fits and how to go from there. And yeah, just stay in touch with us. Please reach out. Please comment. We have some really awesome things coming up. Stay looking out for that. I just finished my midterm in my EMS class, so 2 months away from being completely finished with that class, and it's been stressful, but a lot of other cool things coming down the pipe with that as well. So just be on the lookout, and we love you. We thank you for your support, and until next time, stay true, stay wild.
You've been listening to Wild with JR. Join us next time for more insight and encouragement to help you live out your full leadership potential.